Hello everyone, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing, and I'm back today to show you the Cutterpillar Crop. As promised, I'm not going to take it out of the box without you. I've seen this at some shows and different things, but I've never even stopped at the booth and really checked it out. So this is my first experience with it, except for talking to somebody in a store about it today. So here we go. It is not the color I would choose for my craft room, but I guess, not everything can be blue. It's different than a lot of them because it has this mechanism right here. It slides back and forth, and you just hold the cutter against this metal frame. The platform itself is 6.5 inches wide. Let me set that where you can see it really well. So it's fine for card makers. That works just fine. And also, this packaging, it has the arm that extends, and the arm is actually much longer than most of them. It goes to 17 inches. I don't have anything to cut that's going to go to 17 or 17.5 inches, but if I wanted to, I could, and I have that option. I haven't cut a single thing. Let's see if there's something in the directions that says absolutely read this. Okay, it takes batteries. It says don't carry it around by this bar under any circumstances. It says keep the box. And batteries, lights, cutting, rulers, safety. Yeah, we'll read all that later. So for now, I'm going to put the arm in and flip this over, because on the back side right here, it's sort of an interesting thing. It has a place where you put batteries in. It takes 4 AA batteries, so just like an average remote. And then there's this little door that goes over it. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm going to probably turn this on and leave it on if it doesn't have a timer or something. Okay, you just slide it. There we go. I didn't get it quite right. Just set it on there flat and slide the whole thing in at once. Okay. Then turn this over, and it has a switch. It lights up like a runway strip. Okay. I've never had a cutter with a light on it before. Not really sure how I feel about that, but I guess on those beach weekends and that sort of thing where the lighting isn't great, that might be good. I don't know that for filming you guys would want that on, but I'm going to turn that off for now and just make a few cuts. Everybody likes different styles of cutters. Cutters are like markers. There's no one perfect, well, I don't know. Some people might disagree on that, but I don't think there's one perfect cutter for everybody because everybody uses different things and they like different things. I like to sit when I craft because I have a back injury, and I find that with many cutters, I'm getting up all the time to lean over my cutter, especially the ones where you have to push down. They have that round thing or curved thing and you have to push it down and slide it back and forth. Those, I had a big one of those and it was just too much for me. So I'm going to try this, and I want to test it out the way I would test it, so you can hear my chair squeak. And I'm going to make the assumption that it's just like any other paper cutter where I line it up squarely to here, and I have the edge right up of the paper on it. And in the store, she said that when I slide this back and forth, be sure I press it in towards this silver bar because this thing swings back and forth. Oh, it's beautiful. So the way I check my cuts is it smooth or did it look like something gnawed off? For example, the other side that's a perforated tear. And so this is the side that was the perf tear. This is the other side. It's perfectly smooth, really nice. I almost got in the right spot too, which is pretty good considering when you do these I don't know what you call them, maybe cut aparts. It's sometimes hard to get exactly on the line. So I'm just gonna try again. And that's why I chose this, because it's something that's different than most. This cutter is different because there's nothing that lays on the paper. So I'm just using my hand to hold the paper in place. And I will read in the directions and see if I'm supposed to cut towards myself or away, or if it matters. I'm guessing it doesn't matter. But I do like the cuts. They're very smooth. Let's take some 8.5 by 11. So this is just 8.5 by 11, a regular card size. It's Nina, not the 110, but 85 pound, I think. So I've been using this for card bases because I have a bunch of it, a ream actually. So I'm gonna cut this in half. It's very smooth. It's not perfect, I'm gonna tell you. It is not. There's a little bit of a jagged edge. You can definitely tell which side I cut, like which way the paper was on the cutter and how the blade was facing. So I'm gonna try holding it down, oops, I sliced it, holding it down here and running it towards the edge and being really careful about where I hold it. It's okay, but like I said, it's not great. So while we're comparing, I'm gonna set this aside and I'll work with it in the coming weeks. I just wanna take this. So this is the Tonic Studios, Tim Holtz. This is the small one. 6, right here, the bed only goes to 6 by, I don't know, because they didn't even bother to put anything down here, and I have better things to do than count these squares. But it's probably like 6 by 8 or something. This works to cut a piece of cardstock in half, but it does not work to cut a 12 by 12 piece of paper because it's not long enough, it's not big enough, and it actually has an end that's connected right here, so you don't even have the option of trimming it out later. Okay. This one, I stood up to do it, but it did come out perfect. You can't tell which way I cut it. If you feel that, it's really nice. I thought about ordering the big, I'll show you this one. Don't die laughing, these aren't all mine. Okay, this is the essentially bigger version of this. You can't quite see it in the camera. This is 6 wide and 12 long, okay? So on this one, let me grab a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock for you. You can use a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. I'll just show you with my sticker sheet, but I'm not gonna cut it, right? And it slides in under these two things. This is very tall and it's very off weight. It's hard to explain. This part right here is super heavy, and so it's awkward to move it around. And if you want to do 12 by 12 and do it well, you pull this thing out and you put it in. Then you have this little clippy leg, and then you set it down. Now, if you're super tidy and you always keep your desk perfect, this paper cutter is probably fine for you. I'm not. I don't want to deal with this weird arm that you pull out and stick in and then have to flip the leg. And it sits up really high. Okay, look at this. This is a stamp. Thanks so much. This thing sits up all the way to like the C, okay? So it's up all of this. This is slightly lower. I mean like 1/4 of an inch lower. But this thing on top of this platform right here has another 1/4 of an inch up. It's just this big clunky thing. And when you use this big one, you do have to be careful that you hold the arm in close. I've gotten some bad cuts with this because I don't do a good job holding it in. Oh, and there's another thing. There's a handle on the back. You pull off the handle. Then you attach it to the end right here. okay? It's okay, all right? If I hadn't used paper cutters before, it would be okay. But I have this giant handle sticking out if I put it on. So the thing is overall probably 16 or 18 inches long. I just don't like it. It's just not for me. Now you have to remember, I like the Fiskars cutters. Okay, look at this baby. This thing is lean. The little arm goes out. Okay, now what happens with these is I tried replacing the blade. That didn't work. This is a plastic tray right here, and this blade slides back and forth in it. And for as many cards as I've been making lately, this one lasted me, I don't know, maybe a year. And this one doesn't go to 5.5 or 6 inches, so it drives me crazy. As a card maker, we're cutting a lot of stuff there all the time. So, and I may have mentioned it on a video, I got this one. I was super excited to have this base, 6 inches. I even used a coupon. I was so proud of myself. And the arm goes out. This one's a little more clunky than my most others. I have to tell you, I've probably over the years had at least 6 different Fiskars paper cutters, okay? This one I thought would be the perfect paper cutter. When it sits on your desk, it works great for cards. You can use 12 by 12. It's not too bulky to take somewhere with you. This thing does not cut square. I don't know what the deal is with this. I thought it was me. I was watching another video. Somebody had the exact same paper cutter, and she said, this thing doesn't cut square. I don't know what it is. I thought maybe it was the blade. Once I figured it out, I was actually in the middle of making a video one day when I realized it, and I just thought it was me, so I kind of let it go. But I'm sure you guys watched some of the cards and thought, she makes crooked cards. I changed the blade. That didn't work. It's really disappointing when you work on a project and then in the end you have all your parts cut and you go to put them together and they don't line up. If that was the case, I could have just used scissors, okay? So I think this thing has to retire, or maybe kids get to play with it or something, but I would be leery of these because there seems to be a bad batch out there in the world. So that has led me to this paper search, right? Because the other one is worn out. The other one was bad from the start. This one I like, but it's too small to do 12 by 12. This one I don't like. There's almost nothing I like about this one. And I thought I would order the 12 by 12 version of it, but then it would still have the same arm, but at least it wouldn't be clunky and imbalanced. But let's be honest, I'm very messy, and I don't really have 12 inches of dedicated space. So that is where the Cutterpillar Crop came into play today. So I just wanted to give you some ideas, because I think when people say, oh, this is a fabulous cutter or this is a bad cutter, but you don't know what their frame of reference is, right? Have you ever heard somebody say, oh, I just bought a new car and it's fabulous? Well, my first question is, what was your last car, right? Because if your last car was the car that you limped by through college to make it so you could pay your bills, and it only started on certain mornings, your judgment about whether your new car is good might be off a little. Okay, let's do some cuts with this thing. I'm trying to think of what I want cut up at this point. Here we go, this is pretty cute. Let's cut this up. Just to see how it is for detail work and how it turns out. And again, I don't really know how to use the thing. Let's read the directions. Cutting. It's designed to cut light stock, cardstock, and even lightweight chipboard. Line your paper up against the ruler at the top. Keeps it stable. Place your left hand on the top of the paper to keep it flush. Slide the blade cartridge all the way to the top or bottom of the bar. Using your other hand, push slightly inward toward the flat blade as you draw the blade carriage along the bar. Be sure to keep gentle inward pressure. If the two blades do not meet, they will not cut. It will also help if you apply greater pressure on the direction that you are cutting. Do not attempt to cut too much paper at once. It voids your warranty. All right, good to know. So they don't seem to care which end, just pick one. So we'll start here. I'm going to cut this at a 3 3/8 as though I'm using it for a background for a card. It is weird to me because the paper kind of curves and moves. It's a pretty nice cut though. Oops, that's the wrong edge. Okay, now I'm gonna cut it with this little Tim Holtz just to see which one. In a perfect world, I would have one cutter, okay? I would keep one cutter on my desk. The Tim Holtz, when you run your hands across the Cutterpillar Crop, you can tell which way the blade went because it's pushed the paper down. This small Tim Holtz cutter does not do that. It, either way, and the reason that matters to me, that may sound silly and annoying, but it matters to me because if I want to flip this over and I have an edge that's poked up, I'm going to have to flatten that out. And so when I'm doing these 6x6 paper pads and I'm cutting them and flipping them back and forth, if I can see the edge and tell which way I cut, it makes me crazy and I have to fix it. So then I'm stopping and retrimming and I end up with things different sizes. Okay, that time I did better. See, part of it is there's probably a learning curve with the cutter, and it may sometimes do better if I'm going one way or the other. Oh, but Houston, we have a pretty big situation here. How do you cut a 1/2 inch strip with this thing? Huh. Okay, so that's kind of a deal breaker for me. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This cutter, the small Tim Holtz, it has, yeah, that's a deal breaker for a card maker. I'll have to look online and see what my other choices are, I think. And then I'll let you guys know how this turns out. Don't you love that I don't plan or edit? Okay, this cutter right here, see where the 1 is? And then there's a 3/4. And then from using this, I figured out that this metal thing is, I don't know if it's perfect, I haven't measured it, but this would be a 1/2 and then a 3/4 and a 1 inch, okay? On this one, okay, can you see that? The 1 is right here, and this bar, this silver bar, is the 1st inch. So there's no marking of 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. So if you want to cut a bunch of strips, you don't have that nice marking that I'm used to working with on a Fiskars cutter. You get kind of spoiled because they mark on both sides. That works fine if you know how wide your paper is, right? If I know I have a 4-inch piece of paper, then I can set it at 3.5 and I know. I don't always know how wide the piece of paper I'm holding in my hand is, so I very often, in this cutter, I will go like this. I will go, I'll line it up right here, and I'll hold it down, and now I have a 3/4 inch strip, okay? I didn't have to eyeball it and guess, which I would have to on this one. These are petty details, and I get that, but I'm picky about cutters. So I'm gonna think about this one, but so far this cutting situation right here is probably not gonna work out for me. All right. Also, I mean, it's still pretty big. This is a big machine. Let's see what else. I don't have any other cutters right now to show you. I know, that's crazy, but I think what I'll probably do is I'll go online and I'll look a little. The other thing that I've heard really good things about that's very inexpensive, May, she talks about it in her videos, is the Cricut cutter. Just Cricut makes a cutter, and maybe that's one that I'll research. And it would essentially be a small flat version of a Fiskars. And it could be that for my big cutting and that sort of thing, I need a really big machine. You know, when I'm doing my card bases, not machine, but a big sturdy cutter. But I'd like to have something that's on my desk that works for 12 by 12 and cuts straight. I know, that seems crazy. Okay, so that's it for cutters. I hoped that we would find one that was the most amazing device ever. I do think that the lighting on this is probably good if your craft room isn't real bright, or maybe different, you know, if you have vision problems. This is probably pretty amazing too. The markings right here, that's kind of a bummer for me. So I'll have to think about that. This cutter was, I think about 80. So not an inexpensive. And to put that in perspective, this one with the coupon was like 13. But granted, this was a bad deal, right? Either way, this one didn't go well. I think these are like 40. And I don't know how much the one that I was considering buying, which would be like the 12 by 12 version of this, was. I hadn't really gotten that far because nobody has it in my town, so I was going to have to order it online. Okay, thanks so much for watching, and I guess we'll solve this another day. But my review of the Cutterpillar Crop is that, well, how about this? I won't post this video until I decide for sure if I'm going to keep it. And I will put that at the end of this video when I post it, so you'll know if I'm keeping it or not. Okay, thanks so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Bye-bye.